Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Jessica Grimes. I am the Dean of Economic and Workforce Development, and I'm excited that you're here to hear about our updates as a current coalition on the Community Economic and Resilience Fund, or as we like to abbreviate, CERF. So I see that some of you guys are saying hello in the chat. We welcome that. This is going to be a meeting that we provide you with information, but definitely this is also going to be a conversation as well. And I'm excited to also welcome my partners here who will be talking from the Central Labor Council, B3K and CAPK, and of course, as well as Kern Community College District. Next slide, please. This is going to be our agenda for today. We'll start off with an overview of what this grant is all about. And then we're excited to also hear from the partners that are joining us in this single application. We have dubbed ourselves the Kern Coalition. And so we're very excited to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to be advancing this work and how we're going to be collaborating together. We will also talk about opportunities for community engagement and input. And of course, we will leave time and space for questions and answers. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you an overview of what CERF is all about. I've already said that it is an abbreviation for Community Economic Resilience Fund. It's from Senate Bill 162 that authorized about $600 million for an equity-centric, non-traditional approach to post-pandemic economic recovery that leads to quality jobs and family-sustaining careers. The way that this works is there was a decision to divide California into 13 CERF regions. Kern County happens to be its own CERF region. We're very excited about that. And so it is all about really getting people back to work. The targeted audience, the grant identifies as disinvested communities. And really that means communities where they are experiencing high poverty and high unemployment rates, who before, during, and after the pandemic have been economically disproportionately impacted and need that income inequality, need that pathway to equitable jobs. The grant is divided roughly into two phases. We are coming together as the Kern Coalition to help plan the planning grant, which is due at 3 p.m. on July 25th. And then we're expecting to hear about the planning grant on October 1st. And when that happens, we will come together and work on what's called a sub-regional recovery and transition plan, if you will, that really looks at labor market analyses in various high priority industry sectors to give us an idea of where do we need to focus our efforts, how do we need to tailor this collaborative process where we're bringing in industry partners, where we're bringing labor, where we're bringing community, economic development, workforce development, philanthropy, you name it, to facilitate economic diversification, as well as sustainability and equity. So it's a really, really amazing heavy lift, if you will, that requires a lot of key stakeholders working together. That's going to take about 18 to 24 months to plan collaboratively. Go back to the, I'm not finished yet, go back. And then once we create this transition plan, then we are able to move forward into what's called the implementation phase, which is phase 2. And that's where we're able to go after, it's about $35 million, where projects will be awarded on a rolling basis based on those investment proposals that will be developed. Now let's dive a little bit deeper on what we mean about the CERF overview. Next slide, please. So in order to get this massive heavy lift started, the grant identifies the infrastructure to move this work forward. The fiscal agent is going to be Kern Community College District, and that's pretty much making sure that we're maintaining, fiscal and programmatic reporting, that we are administering subcontracts, memorandums of understanding, ensuring that we're on budget, we're following the grant compliance, all those fun things that are related to being the fiscal agent and host of a grant. The next partner who is working with the fiscal agent is called the regional convener. And I'd like to introduce that as the Kern Coalition. The Kern Coalition represents 4 entities, which includes B3K, CAPK, the Central Labor Council, and Kern Community College District. They are working together collaboratively to provide the leadership in bringing an inclusive group of key stakeholders to plan the grant and implement its objectives. And they will be leveraging their partnerships to create what is called the Kern High Road Transition Collaborative. That is quite a statement. And so I'm going to call it the KHRTC. And really what that's all about is co-developing a plan on bringing good quality jobs, attracting businesses, having retention, making sure that it's equity at the forefront, and that there's economic mobility for all citizens, particularly for those who are identified as disinvested communities. So now the next part of our presentation is really to dive a little bit deeper on those who are our co-conveners. And so I'm going to pass the mic off to the Central Labor Council. And I believe, Imelda, you're going to be speaking to that slide. Thank you.
You're on mute, Imelda.
Okay, sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Imelda Ceja-Betkwitz. I am the president of the Kern Iyamono Central Labor Council, which is an association of various unions representing workers in various industries and sectors. We represent approximately 30 affiliated unions and over 25,000 members. Having labor's voice at the table is critical in ensuring equitable economic development is achieved in Kern County. By having labor, community, business, and education coming together, we can achieve historic changes and investments in underserved communities. In order for Kern County to continue its growth, we just look at other industries outside of agriculture and fossil fuels. Through this initiative, we have the opportunity to create the blueprint for future high quality jobs for our community. The state and federal government is looking to Kern's template for true and equitable development with a worker-centered approach. Labor is proud to represent not only our membership, but all workers in this team effort to build a strong economic future, and look forward to working with the community partners, BK3, Community Action Partnership, Kern County Community Colleges, and everyone else. So please join us in this effort. Together we can and we will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imelda. Next slide, please. And I would like to invite Jeremy to speak on behalf of Community Action Partnership of Kern.
Thank you, Dr. Grimes. I'm Jeremy Tobias, CEO of Community Action Partnership of Kern. And CAPK is very proud to be part of the Community Economic Resilience Fund and our regional application to serve as a co-convener among many distinguished partners. The KCCD and B3K have done much of the heavy lifting over the last few months and last few years in many areas in our community with economic development and striving for inclusion. But we feel this is really a golden moment for a collaborative approach. Historically, there's always these rare moments in time when events come together in unique fashion and creates this kind of groundswell of opportunities. And really, in my opinion, this is one of those opportunities. As the official anti-poverty agency, we are committed to ensuring that the people we serve, the most disadvantaged neighborhoods and communities in Kern, can participate in this process. Kern County gets stronger when we grow and innovate together. So I know this process is capturing my attention and my imagination based on the great things that are potentially going to come out of this. And we're excited to be part of this We think this is the right approach to take, the unified application. And we are excited to see what comes of this. And I think if we do this the right way and are inclusive and include all populations in all corners of Kern County, I think we're going to be very, very successful. And I think this is the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next slide, please. And I'd like to invite Dr. Christian Bill Watson to speak on behalf of B3K.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Appreciate that. So Kristen Watson here, speaking on behalf of B3K, and just absolutely thrilled to see this collaboration taking shape. For the last 2 years, B3K has worked really diligently to gather data, to bring community voice to the table, and to really think seriously about how we can create inclusive economic development within the region. This Kern Coalition is exactly the type of work that B3K was designed to foster. And so it's just so exciting to see CAPK. It's so exciting to see the Labor Council and KCCD come alongside and really think about economic development in a different way. You know, B3K is an umbrella for many, many organizations in the community. The County of Kern, the City of Bakersfield, CSU Bakersfield has been at the table from the very beginning, as well as the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, the Kern Economic Development Corporation, United Farm Workers, and multiple industry partners that represent energy, agriculture, healthcare, banking and finance, real estate and business development, all really intently focused on how do we think about inclusive economic development. And we know from our work with the Brookings Institute that what's required of the region is 100,000 more quality jobs in the next 10 years. So that the number of struggling families with children, we can reduce that by half. It's very disheartening to know that 62% of our population currently lives in families that rely on some form of the social safety net. And if we can, in fact, think about 100,000 new jobs, we'd be able to move half of those children that are in those families into what we would be considered quality jobs and families that are thriving. We know that economic development, after we've identified some of these metrics, economic development is really dependent upon 5 very important drivers. Obviously, talent and workforce is at the very front of this, but we also need to think about traded sectors, and traded sectors are those industries that sell their goods and services, not just here locally, but also nationally and internationally. So we need to identify the important critical traded sectors that are going to take us to that next chapter of our development as a region. We also need to think about the infrastructure. How do we create both the economic and the civic infrastructure that's going to drive this work forward? The governance, and this is a really key thing. This is where this collaborative comes together. And this is just one phase, one piece of what B3K is involved in and looking to accomplish. And then innovation. How do we think proactively about the future of the region? How do we really harness the amazing spirit that has made Kern County just the most amazing place to live? How do we harness that energy and move it forward and proactively think about the future so that we're not reacting to things, but we are actually in control of our own destiny? So B3K is thrilled to be part of this and looking forward to not just the planning grant, but then also the implementation phase. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Next slide, please. And I am pleased to speak on behalf of Kern Community College District, just beginning with the DNA of the mission. The twin goals of economic and workforce development identified in the CERF grant, supported by a coalition, are not new initiatives for Kern Community College District. Its workforce development philosophy is buttressed by collaboration and a clear understanding of whom it serves, the top 100% of Kern County. And that right there is that bold vision that it's not just some of us, but all of us that CERF really addresses. With this understanding of the deeply entrenched poverty in some of our region's rural and urban areas, The CERF grant furthers the Kern Community College District's goal of partnering with others like this wonderful Kern Coalition to serve all learners from all walks of life. And so it's exciting to say that we're bringing this equitable, diverse, and inclusive Kern Coalition together, and it's going to bring so many resources to those who need it most. To me, that's going to be seismic. It's going to affect generational poverty. So it's about impacting the community together. I believe that CERF has developed an enduring infrastructure to build upon that ensures disinvested communities have access to good quality jobs with family sustainable wages in order to thrive. So to me, that's all about a community-wide socioeconomic uplift that opens the door wide open to advance the vision of shared prosperity. In other words, CERF is allowing us to build an infrastructure that is going to be beyond just the CERF grant. This team of teams represented by the Kern Coalition, represented by the Kern High Road Transition Collaborative, is really about bringing intersegmental partnerships together to work collaboratively on what is shared prosperity for all. So I'm very, very excited about what's going to happen in the next step. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. You are here not only to learn about what is CERF, what is the Kern Coalition, what's been happening, but also we have an ask for you. We are going to be developing what we call community and engagement meetings, and we will be reaching out to you for those meetings. Some of those meetings will be sub-regional, so it'll be based on where you live in terms of South Kern, East Kern, West Kern. And some of those meetings will be based on specific areas in terms of like data, economic development, workforce development, you name it. We're also developing a website that will be a one-stop shop where you can find resources related to CERF and keep abreast of what's actually occurring from week to week. As I said before at the beginning, July 25th at 3 p.m. is when this grant is due. So we're definitely needing all of us to be a part of that think tank to really figure out what makes sense moving forward. And I want to highlight that you can provide feedback and provide input at the email at kernserf@kccd.edu. And of course, when the website goes live and when we have those meetings in place, you'll be getting notification around that as well. Next slide, please. So now we've come to the questions and answers. I believe Earl has been monitoring that, but we're happy to move into that phase if we have any questions that you might have asked. Let's see.
Yeah, we have a few questions. So
Okay.
we have one from that is Brittany. She is with a nonprofit organization called Women of Hope Ministries. She asks, do you provide CERF grants for any other nonprofit organizations? How can you apply for CERF?
Those are two excellent questions. And so one of the things that I love about the CERF application process is that in the Kern High Road Transition Collaborative, it's inclusive, which means that not only the planning of what makes sense in terms of the investments that we need to make will include other groups like yours, but also when we think about the funding, we're going to be looking at opportunities to make sure that our community-based organizations are having opportunities to apply for those grants. Now, we haven't actually provided what those details actually look like, but the infrastructure will be that there will be a governance committee that will look at those investment proposals, and folks will be provided with technical assistance to work with industry partners, to work with researchers to really kind of nail down what makes sense for their groups. And we're also going to be incentivizing collaboration. So for example, for your community group, it may make sense that you want to collaborate with other community-based organizations because you will be able to increase the return on investment with that. So the short answer to your question is that there will definitely be opportunities for applying, but the long answer is that we're still developing what that actually will look like. Earl, is there other?
So we didn't have any other questions, just a lot of people introducing themselves and who are really excited to be a part of the coalition. So.
We're excited to have you here. I'm trying to also monitor my chat.
So
I
here
love
is
it. So
one
I
from
think I
Stephen. Oh,
just,
good job.
was the next question by Stephanie?
Stephen Pels.
Okay, sorry.
The CERF initiative fits well with the Housing Authority's Moving to Work initiative. How are we defining good quality jobs? I think that's a great question.
That is an excellent question. Good quality jobs are really defined by whether or not they lead to career advancement, whether or not they provide benefits, and really a pathway out of poverty. So I don't know if you noticed, but I was trying to socialize the term of family sustainable wages, because sometimes we have a notion of the living wage. And when we think about the living wage, it is defined by, well, it's a range. It starts with a single adult with no children, and then it's like, it goes on and on and on. But really, this grant is asking us to think a little broader about that, to think more bolder, to be more worker-centric, but also bringing industry on board and collaboratively working towards an idea of what we really mean about a good quality job. And this comes from the High Road Transition Framework. The High Road Transition Framework is that good quality jobs are necessary to really advance the shared prosperity vision. So it is not just a living wage, but it's what's called the family sustainable wage. And I see that Dr. Watson has also unmuted herself. Go ahead.
Yes, excellent points, Jessica. Thank you. I just wanted to highlight, I mentioned earlier that 62% of our residents, as measured by this family sustainable wage, rely on a social safety net of some kind. And what I didn't add is that half of those individuals get up and go to work every day. And so this is about how do we really focus on what does it take, what does the wage look like for families to not just exist, but to actually thrive in the region? How do we make sure that they have access to, I hate to keep using the word quality, but I think it's incumbent upon us to get that vocabulary right. Quality job is one that has a career pathway, one that has access to benefits, and one that allows for families to support themselves in whatever their living situation is, right? So it'll be different for a single person versus a family with 3 children. We've got to really come to terms with that. And I'm so excited that we're having those kind of conversations, and that CERF is going to provide those resources for us to dig even deeper. There's so much good stuff that's happening in the region, and this is an opportunity for us to really link it all together and think about some new opportunities as well.
So we have another question here from Pamela Long asking how we can leverage people re-entering the society after parole, inmate education, like Project Hire Up, some of the programs that we have there. How do we get those people into education and careers that with sustainable wages?
That's an excellent question. And what, again, I will reference the grant itself, that it's a both and. Some of what we're already doing is working, and it's a matter of scaling up. So I think Earl, you mentioned the Project Hire Up that works with CERF for justice-involved individuals. But it's also about reimagining and redesigning what we're already doing, working with industry to have those conversations that might sometimes be a little uncomfortable, but are necessary to make sure that we're advocating for those who are justice involved and need advocates and ambassadors to help them navigate those pathways so that they are able to access those good quality jobs. So the answer is that when we talk about equity, we are talking about inclusion with a capital I. This is not exclusive to one group, but it's about all of us. And so that would include, I like to say justice involved individuals, because sometimes the language can sometimes bear a certain tone. And so justice involved individuals are those that might be leaving the incarceration, or those who are already with us who are struggling to get a job. We are trying to help all of those individuals and make sure that they have pathways to careers that provide them with family sustainable wages. I see the next question too, Earl. I know. I really appreciate you minding that. From Brittany Brem, it looks like, is there a website to apply for CERF grants? And I'll just kind of explain, because I provided a 50,000 foot level view of what CERF was all about. Really, what we're talking about right now is a planning grant that is due July 25th. That planning grant allows us to really leverage our resources to figure out what does it look like for community-based organizations, small businesses, industry, philanthropy, education, and a number of key stakeholders working together for those CERF grants. But first, we have to plan by actually looking at the data, understanding it in terms of equity, in terms of gaps, in terms of high priority industry sectors, in terms of sustainability, you name it. That's the first piece of it. Once we really understand what you might say, what the baseline is, what makes sense sub-regionally, what makes sense regionally, then we're able to really kind of create the parameters by which we can say, this is how we're going to function in terms of providing those CERF grants. So it's more of creating that infrastructure first, and then making sure that we're continuing to be transparent about that process and inviting all of you and your friends and your networks to be a part of it, so that we can all be a part of this process. I believe there's some more questions, so I'm just going to try to see if I.
We have Nick Hill from
Okay.
The Black Chamber of Commerce. He says, will this group be targeting SB1 funds in accordance with the community benefits agreement?
Nick, I'm so glad you asked that question. I said earlier when I talked about the infrastructure of the High Road Transition Collaborative that it really needs to be a both and. And what I mean by that is CERF opens the door for economic development for this region, but it's certainly not the end. There's other funding sources, other things that are desperately needed, like SB1, that will help us in the work for shared prosperity with disinvested communities. So the answer is that and more.
We have another one from Greg Collins. How can community-based organizations assist in establishing the baseline data?
Again, with the community engagement process, the meetings that we're going to be having, they're both going to be soliciting feedback in terms of strategy, but also we may be employing surveys. There's a lot of different ways to solicit feedback that allows us to have high quality, quantitative and qualitative data that's going to be necessary to really create this recovery transitional plan for our region. So the community-based organizations are the trusted messengers. They're the ones who really are boots on the ground, working with a lot of the individuals who are categorized as disinvested communities. So you will be definitely a part of that process. Are there any more questions, Earl?
I don't see any more. If any of our panelists have any additional thoughts, we could probably wrap up soon.
All right.
We've got D here. Will the group look into a trained, ready workforce? I think that's the goal of this, right?
Absolutely. The goal is definitely to train the workforce and to get us prepared for also those emerging industry sectors as well. I think that about wraps it up for us. I want to thank the panelists and all of you who were able to join us at our 12 o'clock meeting. As I said before, we will be providing you with more information about opportunities to have other meetings and also engagement that will include different forms of engagement. We'll put it that way. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.